Welcome back to 50 Days to Rebuild, the series where I do 50 minutes of exercise and read 50 pages of a physio book in a day. This is day 23. As always, starting off with the exercise portion, running through the McGill method. I'm going to first look at the abductors here. So I progressed from the clamshell into the side-lying abductions today, just because the clamshell is essentially meant to be more of a primer to get the activation. I feel like I'm doing that, and the side-lying abduction is more of a strength exercise, and I figured I'd give that a go and see how that went. Gave it a go, went well, didn't feel like my pelvis was rocking, which was really cool, though I definitely couldn't get full range. Was starting to get some range and it felt good. In fact, it burnt like mad. What I read was that if you externally rotate, it's meant to get more TFL activation, but I actually felt that when I was more internally or neutrally rotated, I felt more TFL or anterior thigh, whereas when I was externally rotated, my glute burnt like nothing else. Either way, felt like really nice activation. I don't really know what this will get me, to be honest with you, but I did like how it felt. I know that whenever my glute medius feels weak, I tend to get knee pain, sometimes like sciatic pain. So yeah, I think that'll be a good thing to incorporate. With the bird dog, to be honest, I'm kind of frustrated. Like, I've regressed it. It's been going okay. What I've been encountering, admittedly for quite a long time with the bird dog, is often the first rep I get like these crunches through the hip or low back. And then right after that, I seem to get like a better push with my lat, and then I get much better activation and no more cracking. I just want to start in that way. I don't know how to. I spent a long time today trying to figure that out, like trying to figure out, do I need to be more over my arm? Do I need to be behind it more? Do I need to sort of squeeze my glutes and almost push the floor away with my legs? You know, is it because I'm getting sort of higher in the second rep? Nothing really seemed to stick. I will say with the arm side of things, it felt a bit better activation, and sort of consistent with the previous days, like no pain and cracking, just sort of slight improvements in activation. So that's good. It's just specifically the left side, but I mean, it does crunch sometime on the right side, but the left side's the one that feels a bit janky. Is how can I get it consistent? I'm not too sure. Dude, oh my god, I thought I was done with this video and I was just editing, and oh my, I was just looking back at the footage of my bird dog, because I was going through my exercises today and I was confused as to what was going wrong, so I put the camera to the side of me to see if I could get a better angle of my back, and I forgot about this till now. Jesus, on my left side, I'm full hyperextending. This is cooked. This was my concern with having like a more neutral posture, because it is a bit of extension, was I've always tended towards like hyperextension. That's not to say that the neutral posture isn't right, that I shouldn't be doing it, I should. But geez, this looks horrible. Like, and even looking at the upper part for like moving the like into flexion and abduction, like I don't know if that's looking right either. I don't know, man. Definitely something to work on here. I think I'm really gonna have to lock down the ribs. And even as I'm thinking about it, like I've been trying to lock down the neck. I think the way to do that is much how you should lock down the ribs, which is like a bit of rectus abdominis tension will pull the ribs down. A bit of hyoid tension will pull the ribs pull the neck down. I've been sort of trying to think like, oh, pull the neck down, like first tense this, then pull the neck down. I think tensing this is what's pulling the neck down. So I think I'm gonna try and do all of that, maybe a bit more. I know I've been trying to temper the contraction a bit, but I think I'm going to try and add those bits in a bit more firmly, and I think also not let myself sort of sink. I think that's sort of what's happening here, is I'm sinking into an extension. I need to sort of have this almost, I guess, pushing up, maybe through the knees, maybe through, almost pushing through the core. I don't know. We're gonna see how that goes. It looked a bit scary today. Hopefully that improves soon. Also, I realized in the past few days I've done the wall roll and I haven't talked about it. My bad. With this one, I've been a little unsure if I'm doing it properly. It's hard to tell if I'm moving in like as like one unit and avoiding any spine motion. Looking at the recording, especially when I'm moving from the left side, I think that it's going okay. Like, I'm not seeing any spine movement. On the right side, I think I'm starting in somewhat of a laterally flexed position, so probably need to be more aware of that. I think, again, with my new awareness around trying to keep the ribs down, this is just something that I'm going to need to focus on more, and hopefully that translates. I know that when I first saw Kyra about this, he said to try and pull down with your lat, and that's what I've been trying to do, and I think maybe he said your chest as well. So Again, I might just need more of that. He had me doing it quite quickly at the time. I'm not sure if that's how I should do it. I think I should probably start slow. So I don't know. It's looking okay, but definitely something I think I need to work on before we start going to like the side plank into the normal like plank roll. So I sort of gunned through my learning for today and finished Relax and to Stretch by Pavel. Read a little bit more than I was meant to, but it is a relatively spread out book. It's not as dense as my other physio book, so I don't feel too bad about that. Jumping into what I learned from that book, Pavel discussed the limitations of stretching and that our goal isn't just to absolutely maximize mobility. In fact, he said really the goal should be to have a slight reserve beyond your normal lifestyle or sport requirements. So it seems here he's saying like, something might happen that might push you beyond what you're ready for. So just have a little bit ready to go. But much like McGill talked about how you don't want to stretch like a sprinter past the joint range of motion required for their sport, seems like Pavel's sort of discussing a similar thing here. He also said that you can do a stretch or an exercise and not have the range of motion translate to another exercise at the same joint. So the example he gave here was like a hamstring stretch when standing and sort of bending over versus on a chair. And he said that on the chair it didn't translate to standing, but standing did translate to the chair. So basically the point here was like some stuff just isn't going to matter to you and like your sport and your lifestyle. And he said here just like whatever doesn't either A, make you feel better or improve performance, just cut. So a good example of this was in the squat where he's saying that you need enough flexibility in the hamstrings to get low, but if you, I sort of get into the whole of the squat, but if you have too much, then apparently you can go sort of too low, which is something that I hadn't heard before, like too much depth in a squat. Like as long as I had a neutral spine, I didn't think that would be a problem. I think maybe it's just in referring to like a general weightlifting, trying to set records approach, where it's like extra depth here is actually potentially going to be deleterious because there's going to be more work to do. But I imagine that for someone like myself who's not trying to set like a squat record, that might not be the worst thing. Now from here, he ran through a few different principles that could be applied to most stretches. So in terms of trying to make progress with range of motion, he argued here that time under tension was more impactful than like frequency of sessions or the intensity of the contraction when doing this like isometric squeeze, i.e. it's better to hold longer and do more sets. The other thing that he said was very important was to try and hold the stretch for about 30 seconds at the end, and particularly like the tension in the stretch at the last 30 seconds. Didn't really elucidate why, he just said that this was something that was helpful to do. The last thing was around breaking through a plateau, and he said that there was something here called the reminiscence effect. Basically, this is just you having an improvement in performance after taking some time off. This seems to reflect much of what his approach would be around like periodization, so like a stepped approach. The argument as to why this works was basically that yes, you need to groove a motor pattern with repetition over and over to make it work, but once you hit a plateau, you're now sort of just re-grooving the same pattern, and that taking time off was sort of giving your brain a chance to forget what its limitations were, and then when you come back and sort of burst through, which I thought was an intriguing sort of approach to training. Beyond that, he did run through sort of about, I think it was like 36 different stretches. I'm not going to run through all of them, but there were a few things with a few different ones there that I thought were really important. For example, he was emphasizing the importance of hip flexor stretches. There were quite a few he had that were sort of like karate poses, but the original one just looks like a kneeling hip flexor stretch that I've done and seen many times before, but he made it very clear the hip flexor is the antagonist to the glutes. I have searched for that information for a long time, so very happy to hear that just very simply put. He said here that I need to have the torso and the shin upright the whole time, no putting the hands on the knee, no bending forward, that would take slack off the hip flexor, no twisting, keeping the hip square the entire time. So I'm going to try this soon, I think. I've been a little wary to try some stretches again, but this is one of those ones that I can just tell how important it is, and that it's definitely important for me. So I think it might be one of the first ones I start doing again. The good morning looked like the best way to squeeze the hamstrings from my perspective. He said it was very important to squeeze the butt. He actually recommended sort of putting all the weight through the heels, so you're sort of coming off the toes a bit, which is interesting. I thought we would want like a proper planted foot. And he said that the good morning and the hip flexor stretch were essentially prerequisites to start doing the groin stretches, because you wouldn't be able to get into the correct position to start and you'd sort of be in a compensated mess when you were doing those stretches. He did show a cool toe dorsiflexion stretch. So I've always done, or not always, but for some time done the Kelly Starrett one, which is like you're sort of kneeling on the ground and trying to press through your big toe. I often get like a janky sort of pain here, like some like sort of nerve stuff happens, but he just did it up against a wall when he was sitting. So I'm interested to see if like sort of doing like some sort of PNF approach with that works, or if doing the Kelly Starrett stuff for toe dorsiflexion helps with PNF. So one of the things that I used to do when I was hyper flexible was I did a lot of forward bending, including like straddle or sort of legs together. And he discussed here that when you're doing some sort of hamstring stretch, like the classic forward bend, that it was important to keep the toes directly up. Now he said that if you sort of let them flare out, it'll target more of the medial side, but we want to target the lateral side because apparently we're going to essentially hit the medial side with the groin stretch, which is interesting. I think that was something that was sort of said in anatomy trains, that it was kind of considered like the other adductor was, even though it's part of the hamstring group, that it was so closely connected to the adductor group, and it sounds like he's sort of saying a similar thing. He also showed something that I'm pretty sure I've seen in his other books, like it looks so much like the side press, but it's called a bent press. And he said that it would really work on the abductors, and that particularly if you had sciatica, it could be quite helpful. And he said that it did require a lot of mobility already, so it wasn't like the first stretch to jump into, but it's something that I'm very keen to try. Like, I don't get much sciatica symptoms anymore, but I know that whenever my glutes get a bit weaker or I'm sitting a lot, it comes back, so this might be a good counter to that. And the last thing that was just really cool to see was this roadkill splits. This was basically like just doing the splits and then entering a pancake. So just fully like max hip flexion basically. He said that for rock climbers and dancers, and I really love rock climbing, that nothing really beats this for getting the turnout, which makes a lot of sense. Like looking at it, it's like, oh, this would mean you would be as close to the wall as possible. So that's something that I know is a long whiles off, but it's exciting to see that that's like a potential sort of performance enhancer, even though I'm more focused on the rehab side right now. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for day 23. Just gunned through Pavel. He is so awesome. I'm going to read Super Joints next. That's his other sort of stretching one around joints. Hopefully this will get me to a point where with anatomy trains, your spine, your yoga, some McGill knowledge, and coming from Pavel and PNF, I can start to just come to more of a conclusion around how I view stretching and make some sort of change to help my body. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.